You teach a course where you normally lecture to students during class time. They work on homework and group assignments during their own time. What if there were a way to do the lectures outside of class time so you could use class time to have students work on activities together? Welcome to Flipping the Classroom, Simply Speaking. It's a pretty common course design. Students gather in a classroom a few times a week to hear a lecture. A faculty member may show slides, play a few videos, demonstrate some concepts, or solve problems. On their own time, students work on problems and arrange times to meet to work on group projects. Some faculty are finding ways to increase student engagement and improve learning by flipping this design. In the new model, students watch, listen to, and interact with content on their own time, and then use class time for engaging activities. Here's how it works. Say you're teaching a biology course. One week you talk about invasive animal species, such as the Asian carp. Instead of lecturing, you post a few YouTube videos about Asian carp. You also produce a video of your own in which you show some photographs of other invasive species and talk about their origins. You want to keep each video interesting, so you keep them under 10 minutes each. To help trigger discussion, you also include some questions that you will be asking students to think and talk about during your next class session. Later in the semester, students can go back to these videos to review key concepts to prepare for an exam or to guide a project or paper. Short videos are just one option. Audio podcasts, VoiceThread, and many types of interactive media can be used as well. The main idea is to capture your presence, thoughts, and guidance that would normally take place in a classroom setting. Now that the lecture is done outside the classroom, what do your students do when they get together? You can have students bring their laptops to class, work in groups, and research one of the other invasive species that you discussed in your video. Where did they come from? What impact are they having? What is being done to control them? Since they're doing this research during class time, they can get your assistance in determining good sources of information and how to interpret what they're seeing. Also, you'll get a better idea of which students are doing their fair share of work in their groups. There won't be any more excuses that students don't have time to get together for group work. If an interesting idea comes from one group, you can get the attention of the class and have a spontaneous discussion. In short, you can create a much more active environment. There are many other activities you can do in the classroom. Have students discuss course concepts or take different sides of an issue and debate their merits. Students could share drafts of papers that they're writing and get feedback from you and other students. Students can work on difficult problem sets, share solutions, and ask for help when they get stuck. Organize students into groups and have them answer questions about a case study, or they could write and practice a presentation about a topic of your choosing. There are ways of using class time for activities involving any discipline. The important thing is to get students to engage with the content of your course. Flipping your classroom involves some serious thinking about the way you are teaching and the way students learn, so you may want to start with a single topic or week and see how it goes. The results may surprise you. This has been Flipping the Classroom, Simply Speaking. To get more information about this topic, visit tlt.its.psu.edu/flip. This video was produced by Penn State University and is available for use under Creative Commons license.
So I want to deconstruct a little bit about what that video was just saying for a couple minutes here. And one thing I'll start out with is sort of an admission that a lot of you guys are probably doing a lot of what classroom flipping is talking about, the active learning. A lot of you are probably thinking about active learning strategies and providing video resources outside the class. A lot of you are probably doing that. What classroom flipping really is, I think, is the combination of those strategies to provide sort of a cohesive experience for the students that's a lot more interactive and a lot more pedagogically sound. So the idea basically is this, and again, this was sort of covered in the video, but in a traditional classroom, inside of the classroom on the left side is the lecture. This is what students do to come into class. There might be a little bit of discussion, but for the most part, the instructor is standing in front of class and teaching to the students, and then they go home and they do their homework based upon the stuff that they learned in class, and then they take what they learned in homework and they come back to the next class and go on to the next lesson. Classroom flipping essentially reverses this. Another alternative name for classroom flipping is the inverted classroom, and it gets to this idea of reversing the lecture and the homework so that students are doing homework inside of class, and the lecture, that sort of static flow of content, the things that they need to memorize, that sort of mode of learning is happening outside of the classroom. And this makes a lot of sense because if you can imagine students working through homework and having problems, and not knowing the answer to something, they don't have somebody, maybe one of their peers, but they don't have the instructor, they don't have the expert to work through that problem with them and explain where they're getting, how they're getting stuck and what the solutions are. So it's a completely not guided process. So when you put the homework inside of the classroom, you have an instructor that's right there and helps them work through the problem. The lecture content is just largely sort of a one-way flow of information anyway, and encapsulated in sort of a video, and students can watch that outside of class. So that's really, really generally what the model is for classroom flipping, and it's a little bit, there's a little bit more to it than that, but that's sort of where the concept of flipping comes from. What makes this, I mentioned that a lot of you have done lots of this stuff, you've done active learning, there's many, many decades of research into active learning. What makes this sort of new is that it's very much enabled by technology. There's a lot of technology involved in classroom flipping that's either new or it's gotten to the point where it's so easy that a lot more people can approach it. So these strategies like classroom flipping are a lot more possible now. So those, and again, these are the things that we'll go into more depth in a little bit later, go hands-on, or digital video, lecture capture, clickers, things like that. So really, again, what the goal is sort of get away from this idea of the sage on the stage and guide on the side, and integrate a lot more active learning. If you're not familiar with, this is an image from Michael Wesch's cultural anthropology class, and a lot of you probably have heard of Michael Wesch. He was a keynote speaker at the TLT Symposium, and he speaks a lot about education. I believe he was a teacher of the year, national teacher of the year a few years ago. This is an interesting activity that he does, where this is called a world simulation, where he has the students throughout the course of the entire semester simulate various economies and interactions that different nations have with each other, and sort of comes up with this sort of fake layout of continents, and students pick the different countries that they're involved with, and then sort of in the upper left is the sort of culminating activity for this thing that he does, where his students all go into a big giant auditorium, and they, throughout the course of a few hours, act out various different diplomacies and trading and things like that, and the students learn all about the things that he's talking about in his cultural anthropology class. So it's a pretty interesting example of active learning. Maybe an extreme example of active learning, but this has gotten very, very good results with students on this one. I mentioned the idea of bringing some of the lecture out to the outside of the classroom. And we'll talk about some of the technologies that are related to capturing lecture video and providing that to students online. This is a very easy process now with technologies like VoiceThread and lecture capture. So this is sort of a breakdown of a typical flipped classroom. And again, Matt's going to talk about a specific strategy that was used in one of the classes that we're doing a classroom flipping pilot with. But on the top is a non-flipped classroom. And this is sort of a very generalized, generic version of what would happen in a normal classroom for a Tuesday, Thursday class. So Monday night, students are reading the textbook and going through some of the reading materials that they need to do the purpose of class on Tuesday. On Tuesday, we do a face-to-face lecture. Kind of over the course of Wednesday night, and Wednesday, we do some kind of homework, and then in class on Thursday, I might do a quiz or an exam. In a flipped classroom, the first day of the week, the students are watching a short video, again, to introduce some of the concepts, maybe a 10 or 15 minute video that just covers some of the really basic concepts that are going to be covered in a Tuesday class. They might do some formative assessments and knowledge check kind of activities to see where they're at that point, and maybe submit some questions that are going to be covered in class on Tuesday. And then Tuesday's class is discussing those questions and then doing some facilitated group problem-solving activities and problem-based learning. And then sort of a repeat. On Wednesday, they might do out of class, get together and do some group project work, watch some more videos, do some more research, and then submit more questions for more discussion on Thursday. So very, very different between the top and the bottom what students are doing inside of that class. And one thing I want to leave this sort of introduction to classroom flipping with is this idea is very much predicated on this idea of doing active learning, doing group activities in the classroom. And the fact of the matter is that many of our classrooms are not built for this kind of activity. And this is a perfect example. If you're not familiar with Onward State, it's a student-run newspaper that University Park students have created. And they did a series on the worst classrooms at University Park, and this is one of them. This is sort of like if you've ever gone to a professional hockey this is sort of like the super steep classroom. If you have fear of heights, it's really terrifying going into this classroom. But can you imagine doing group activities in this classroom? I mean, if you had a group where one of your peers is behind you, what are you going to do? I mean, you have to literally turn around and look up. So it would be very hard to do active learning in this classroom. So there is that challenge. I'm sure that a lot of you guys have this challenge too, of classrooms that are designed like this, that have bolted down chairs that you're trying to do active learning in. So it's a challenge, and I think the only solution really is to either work around it or just lobby to get more modern classrooms built in your spaces. So I want to do one more clicker interaction here. Let me start this. Good. So a lot of you are already trying this out, but still quite a few of you who haven't approached it or are not really sure if what you're doing is flipping. That's fine.